Hello, guys and gals and friends and loved ones and strangers. Welcome to the show. And today we really got a show. I said we're going to be doing a lot of info. We're going to be digging. We're going to be doing some digging. And we want to find out the truth about all these buildings that were supposedly built in a year and then burned down in the World Fairs and Tartaria. And we've already uncovered so much. If you guys, any of you just popped in here, haven't seen some of these videos that we've been doing on this information, you need to go back and watch them. But what I'm fascinated with, probably more than anything, is this little map. And all the maps of California, which shows, Arizona and the United States and California and all this area, Mexico usually, they pretty much don't have anything on the map other than a few little rivers and streams and cities, villages, whatever they are, right around where I live. If you look at that map, you see that river that goes up this little lake. And I've been looking for that lake because around the lake are the 7 cities of gold. And I found them. And that's all I can tell you today. We'll talk more about that some other time. But today, we need to build the foundation for all this information. And because we're on a quest, so we got to get to the foundation so we can build this beautiful, fantastic truth from the ground up. We got to uncover the truth, basically, from all the liars and all the shenanigans that's been going on. So today, I dug down into their claims about how old these buildings are and when they were built. And I got some information for you. You guys out there interested in this Tartaria, you need to see this. It might be a little boring. I'm going to have to read a couple of things to you. But basically, this is going to be an eye-opener. And it's like what I try to do is when I find something, if I'm trying to find something that doesn't seem to be findable, nobody's telling, then I find clues, and that leads me to another clue and another clue. I mean, it's like you can't just go randomly and just flipping through pages and reading AI and books, and I don't waste my time with that. I use my noggin and I try to pry something open that leads me to something tangible. And today I think I've done that to give us a little clearer understanding, so that we can either confirm, yay or nay, were these ancient buildings there before we even got here? Or are they just claiming they built them, but they were already there? Perhaps hundreds and hundreds or maybe thousands of years. I know it sounds crazy, guys, but I think I got AI to admit that these buildings were not built when they said they were built. So let me show you the evidence that I've got. All right, guys. We got the smoking gun. I think we've got the smoking gun. We're going to go on a journey today. Buckle up. I asked AI, why were old buildings founded and not built? And they say old buildings may be said to be founded rather than built when referring to the establishment of an institution or organization within that building, rather than the original construction of the building itself. This signifies the date the building was first put to use for a specific purpose, rather than the date it was initially built. Here's a more detailed explanation. Founding versus building. The word founded, in this context, often refers to the start of a particular use of the building, not necessarily its initial construction. For example, a building might have been built in 1 year, but its use for a specific purpose, like a hospital or a school, might be founded several years later. And so, I'm going to read this a little bit further, but I'm just sitting here looking at this and I'm like, this is diabolical. And it's not some weird little point that doesn't mean anything. If they wanted to hide when these buildings were made, how would they do it? Surely we live in a society where we can look things up. When was it built? And if they always just say, we don't know, to every building, it would be obvious they were hiding something. They couldn't do that. And they couldn't tell you, oh yeah, we didn't build this building. We found it. But they have to, legally. You see what I'm saying? These guys are under contract. They must tell you the truth. So they say, okay, well, we found it. That's when we found it. Now, if you know what they're doing, and you say, when did you build that? And they say, oh, well, we founded it in 1897. I mean, you didn't know any better, you wouldn't ask any more questions. Architects probably do the same thing. They don't know. Nobody on this earth knows. It's a little hidden secret. If you told the guy, no, I didn't ask you when you founded it. I asked you when you built it. He'd scratch his head and said, well, that's what it means. And everybody keeps saying that's what it means. But they're not an authority. They can lie because they don't even know. But the people who started the hoax knew. And that's why they call it founded, which has nothing to do with building. Nothing. So, what a crazy thing. Why don't they just say, construction began, it was begun building, or something like this. And so now we know why these buildings come along and they're done in about a year. Because they just founded them. And I'm going to show you the intricate details of how they use this word here. But this is outright lying because, well, they're saying it right here. They're admitting that founding doesn't mean built. So do you guys really believe that in all the years we've been on this planet in the last, 100, 200 years, nobody ever wanted to know when that was built, when they said when was it built, but they actually wanted to know when it was founded by some corporate entity that just took it over and found it and incorporated it or something, whatever that means. Nobody in their right mind would mean that. And most humans can't just lie all the time. I mean, they subconsciously teach us to lie by making it sound like, well, we can't do anything if you lie, unless it's perjury, but, we can't stop you from lying, and, everybody does it, so people just feel obligated to lie about things. Sometimes they think they're doing the right thing. But this isn't lying. People don't know what's going on. Somebody, the devil's a liar. We know he's a liar. But if they were trying to hide all of this and they had to do certain things legally, it would certainly say, okay, let's just call it founded, and that way, and we'll never have an explanation for this in the dictionary or anything. So people will just always assume that no one will ever be the wiser. We didn't build any of these things. We just found them. But I guess that's the first point, is that they're literally telling you that founded doesn't mean built, and that it may have been built 100 years or a century before that. Now, why are they saying that? Why are they saying a century or, some many years later? Why are they admitting that? We didn't even ask them that. I think they got to tell us the truth. But even after we sit here and read this, most of you will think, oh, come on, Dave, founded means built. Well, they just told you it doesn't. All right, so we'll keep going. Focus on the institution. The founded date is often a commemorative date. Has nothing to do with when it was built. Signifying the establishment of an institution or organization within the building. An example, a building might have been built in the 16th century, but the plaque might say, hospital founded 1800, indicating the hospital's start date within that building rather than the building's original construction date. Now, guys, the 16th century means 1500, the 1500s. So you're in the 16th century when you're in the 1500s. But it's founded in 1800. Friends, the 16th century is the 1500s. That's the whole 16th century, the 1500s. So 1500 to 1800 is 300 years. Why are they divulging this information? They're divulging it on their own. Nobody asked them this. But they got to be truthful, though dishonest, you see. Well, I think there's a lot of words like this, and we're going to start digging these up and going through them. But we just assume that this word founded now happens to mean this is when they built this. Like we think, oh, maybe that's when they laid the foundation. That's what it means, founded. But they're admitting right there it has nothing to do with laying a foundation. So perhaps it does mean when they found it. Like that, oh, we conquered the land and we found this building. So what's the date? 1850? Okay, we found it. But how long has it been there? And when was it built? Why couldn't they say construction date? Building date? Why don't they tell us how many horses it took to drag all the granite blocks from quarries 1,000 miles away in France or Spain or something, Greece? Why don't we have any more information? So I start thinking, well, you hear about all these huge buildings in Budapest and, the Taj Mahal and all these buildings, and they're usually just built in a year or two or something, and then something happens and, But I thought, well, right here in this country, we do know about a huge cathedral-type temple construction that we assume must have really happened. For one thing, when you look up the Salt Lake City temple, you find it took them 40 years, and it was built out of granite. And they didn't have to go 1,000 miles like in Europe where they say they went to France or Greece or some other thousands of miles to go get the rock. But there were big Rocky Mountains around Salt Lake and salt flats and all different kinds of mineralization. They could get granite not too far away. And so I thought, well, I wonder, I've never seen a picture from because they started around 1850 and went to 1898 or something like that. But so I've never seen any pictures where they started laying stones and, I don't know how good the cameras were, in those days, but I just thought, okay, let's look into this, see if it's real. So I asked Google, can you show me pictures, what did I say? And other proof that Salt Lake Temple was built in 1800s. Yes, the Salt Lake Temple was indeed built in the 1800s. While it was a long process, the foundation was laid in the mid-1850s, and the building was not fully completed until 1893, with the capstone ceremony occurring in 1892. Great, but where's the pictures? Here's a breakdown of the construction. Foundation, saying regurgitated information. And it says you can find historical photographs, drawings, and descriptions of the Salt Lake Temple construction process at LDS Living. So let's click that. Let's take a look at these pictures, all right? This will prove it if they got pictures. Ah, there we go. Well, that proves it. Some guy with a white, from top to bottom, right? Been out there working all day and ain't getting no dirt on their clothes. Okay, I'm just joking. But that don't seem like a picture that proves anything. Oh, there we go. No, that's just a drawing, huh? Oh, there we go. Proof. There you go. See, you see, it looks like they're doing something on top of the, you know. Well, first of all, it looks like it's pretty much finished, except for the spiral or whatever on top, the little pointy things on top. So perhaps that's when they found it and they decided to add spirals on top, or, architectural beauty or on the outside of it that it didn't originally have. Or maybe they removed things that was up there and they replaced them. I don't know, but it doesn't prove that they built it. We don't have a picture that they built it. And that's it. That's all they got. Now here's an old picture, black and white. But you can see they're working on the top of the building, but still no actual pictures. I don't know if the Salt Lake Temple is a picture of them building it. If you notice at the top of that, where you see all those people standing, there is a whole nother picture phased into it to make you think that they're on top of the building working. But that's not that's two pictures. Are we looking over the top of the building into the hills of Salt Lake? No, I think that's another picture. There weren't all these people. If you notice, some of those people that are standing there, they're hanging in midair. Look at where it says 1870. There's people standing and hanging in midair. This is a photoshopped picture. So you see the guy in the window on the left? There's a couple of people over on the right in that window, maybe. Maybe that's not a person, but it looks like it. And the horse at the base of it, and the wagon. If the people by the 1870 date are hanging in space and they're just photoshopped in, then I'll guarantee you that the people in the window and the horse and the carriage at the bottom are also photoshopped. You say, yeah, but who cares? It's just a book. He can do anything he wants. Okay, but that's a picture that they put in this, where they say this is proof that they constructed it and it's photoshopped. You see, it's just fraudulent. Let's look at the next link. They give you 3 links. There's that same picture. Wow. What an architect, right? They tell you a bunch of stuff, but there's the same picture. That's all they got. That same picture. In every picture, the thing is fully built. And there's the same picture. Same picture. There are no pictures of it being built. So, one last link. Salt Lake Temple original annex. Same picture twice, and then a picture all finished on the inside. And then some kind of weird, I don't even know what this is, but there are no pictures, friends. There are no pictures. Okay, guys. Smoking gun number 2. And this is kind of big. So I was trying to ask AI in such a way that I could corner them into admitting some truth that I don't know how this computer knows how to lie or how they programmed it. But they don't seem to be fessing up to some of the things I needed to fess up to. But I asked, do all cathedrals built have foundation stones with the date founded? Now, if they did, then that would solve a lot of our problems. AI says no. Not all cathedrals have foundation stone with the date of founding inscribed. While the practice of laying a cornerstone, often inscribed with the date of construction, it's common. It's not universally applied to all cathedrals. Well, I wonder why. Well, give us an explanation there, Mr. AI. Well, some cathedrals may have crypts or other foundational elements that predate the formal foundation or the foundation stone ceremony. It predates it. Well, how far does it predate it there, AI? Or they may have been built on the foundations of earlier structures. Oh, so if you found a building with the spiral missing and you rebuilt the spiral, you could say it was built by you. Who cares about that foundation stone prior to it, or the ruins of this other building, which probably wasn't even in ruins, but you just founded it and took it over, I guess. It says, here's more detailed explanation. Cornerstone as a cultural practice. The practice of laying a cornerstone is deeply ingrained in architectural traditions. Well, of course, wouldn't it be? They'd be proud of their work. They would want, look, this huge gargoyles and cathedral-like spiraling towers, and it's the most magnificent 7 wonders of the world, right? Wouldn't you want to put your name on it? Explain who did it, who got the glory, why you built it, and when you did it. Wouldn't you? Well, I think so. So why didn't they do it all the time? Well, they've already answered that, because they built them on they just took them over. They found it and put a new steeple on it and said, now this is ours. And they just didn't tell us who owned it before they got there. But the practice is certainly deeply ingrained, not just ingrained like in a shallow way, but in a deep way in architectural traditions, particularly in sacred architecture. Well, most of these cathedrals are sacred, right? They're spiritual, they're temples. It's a ceremonial act that often marks the beginning of a building project and may include a time capsule or inscription. So it's so important, this tradition, that they want you to know who built it and all these kinds of things. It might even have a time capsule that they're wanting to have a ceremony some other future date and get around and celebrate this. But it's not a universal requirement. Well, that's not really fair, because all the people that supposedly built these cathedrals over the last hundreds of years were all masons. They follow their rules from traditions from yonder days. They didn't just, oh, you know what, let's build the Taj Mahal, but today we're not going to let anybody know that we built it and when we built it. We're not going to inscribe anything on this thing. It's just leave it a mystery. So many cathedrals do have cornerstones or inscriptions indicating the date of construction. It's not a strict rule for all cathedrals. Some cathedrals were built on the sites of earlier religious structures. I assume they don't want you to know, but I'm assuming the way they did that is they were literally just saying the reason why it's not universally done that way is because there's so many of them that were just faked. They didn't actually build them. They were already built. And that's what they're saying. They were built on the sites of earlier religious structures, reusing existing foundations or crypts. In these cases, the date of the new construction may be marked separately or not at all, if the focus is on the continuity of the site. Well, if, and who knows, and maybes, right? But the focus on the site, the importance of the site itself, rather than the specific date of construction. Oh, who cares when this was built, right? If it was under Trump's presidency or Truman, who cares? They don't care about the credit. They don't want credit, right? Or maybe they do want credit, and that's why they're not telling you. They want you to think they built it, but they didn't. See? That's not important, the specific date. Listen, if you guys believe this, I got a bridge I can sell you over the bay down here in Arizona. So I'm trying to find some way I can get a picture of a foundation stone with the date on it. I haven't found any of these big megalithic cathedrals. But there certainly are a lot of buildings that have dates on them. 1880, 1854. That one's, there's a date on there, but I can't read it. I can't see the one on the clock. It must be there. They're showing it. We got this 1791. I can't see anything there. This is 1705. I guess there's a date on that. This is an odd one, 1626 and 1926. Why are there two different dates exactly 300 years apart? Backwards and forwards. I mean, 1789. You notice a lot of these where they have dates where they're quite old, they're different colors. That's not the same red rock. And you can see the mortar is new. And it's just inscribed with like a little screwdriver, like a little chisel. It's not even, it's like just written in very poorly. I don't believe they wrote that was actually done when they built it. I mean, I'll show you another one of those. 1934. This is 1922, 1921. Let's see one there. I can't read that one. But it looks like 4853. I don't know what, maybe it's 1853. Here's 1732 to 1736. But it's a plaque. So that's done recently. They decided to put that up in modern times. We have no idea when it was built. Because they're lying about so many things. 1840. Now, again, look at that. It's all been done recently. That's not even matching any of the other rock. That door, that white paint around there, and it's all recent. Oh, look at that one. That's a window. You can see they've closed with cement. There used to be a window there, but they've closed it off and they put the date there. So why would they add the date like that? Why wouldn't there be somewhere an actual date? Why are all the dates added later? Do you know why they talk about laying the foundation stone? Because these were monuments. Stones were put down as monuments, and then they later became buildings and churches and cathedrals, but they were spiritual places, and they had to put a foundation stone and write who was the one who wrote it, or what king, or what era, and the date. That's why they had foundation stones, because you couldn't fake that, because the stone was literally underneath all that thing, and it couldn't be built without laying the foundation stone first. So that's fraudulent to later on put a plaque on it and say that's good enough. Seems like every one of them I see, I have they don't look old, they look recent. But in modern times, from the 18-something forward, they seem, a lot of times, they're very proud to put their name and the date. Again, that one, 1503, honestly, that could have been faked. There was one of these that I was going to show you. I think it's right here. All right, so you see, why is it that all the stones are like rocks, except where they recently sanded down the stone perfectly flat, and you can see it's fresh, it's a lighter color, and they wrote 1923 on it. But I'll bet you that was built long before that. 1327. Anyway, we're not going to be able to prove anything by any of this, except that some of these can obviously be faked. That's about the only point we're making here. And they don't have any of these foundation stones to show us for Budapest or the Taj Mahal or for the Church of London or anything else. So I'm going to keep looking. Notre Dame, according to this AI, was the top of their list. I think I said name 10 of the biggest cathedrals in ancient times ever built. First thing came up was Notre Dame, and I asked to see the foundation stone. This is what they show me. That's not a foundation stone. It was tacked to the side of the building. You see, when you're going to build something like the Notre Dame building, the cathedral, it's like one of the wonders of the world. You would definitively mark it somewhere with the date of construction and who was king or emperor when it was constructed and who were the builders, or if it was Masonic or whatever it was. But that shows a date. But that's all they got for us, because they couldn't show me a foundation stone that was underneath that you could prove was there when they built it. This is on the side of the wall. It's not proof that it was built then. So then the next one, that's Notre Dame. The next one is Cologne Cathedral. And they say it was begun construction in 1248. The construction of this Gothic masterpiece took, I guess, 600 years to build. And it was completed in 1880. Okay. We have these coins that commemorate the Cologne Cathedral. And this one right here, you can read it better than the other ones. This is 1248 to 1928. Well, that's not proof. Because just because they made a coin in 1928 and said that it was built in the 1200s doesn't prove anything. And the date on this one is 1845. And I don't know what's in that picture, like on top of the roof. On the left side of the building, up on top of the apex of this like A-frame roof, it looks like a telephone pole with electric lines coming down. Or maybe it's a cross with wires hanging off of it. But in 1845, they might have had electricity. I don't know. But on the right side, there's what looks to be like some kind of crane arm that where they're working on it. Or, you know, I see some other strange things up there. But that says 1845. But some of these don't have any date of 1242 or whatever that was. But these are all coins that were made many years after. It's like we just don't have any proof that they're telling the truth. Then the next one is the Chartres Cathedral. All right. Here might be smoking gun number 3. This is crazy. So I literally just asked them, do we have proof the Chartres Cathedral was built when they say it was? And AI said, yes. Historical records and archaeological evidence support the widely accepted timeline for the construction of the Chartres Cathedral, which began in the 12th century and continued through the 13th. Specifically, the West Facade dates from 1130 to 1160. So, part of it, specifically, was built in 1134 to 1160, but the main structure was completed by 1260, but after a fire in 1194. Conveniently, there was a big fire and burnt down the old structures that were there, and then they just rebuilt it into what we call the Chartres Cathedral. But there was something there. It was a big fire, or maybe they just started working on it, had some stones sitting here and there, and all of a sudden it was a big fire and burnt up all the stones, and they had to start over again. But they always tell you when they found something or build something, you know, some wonder of the world or something, they're saying, well, after the fire, we built it. What was before the fire? Oh, some trash, right? But we built the whole thing right after the fire. So early structures, Chartres had earlier churches on the site. Oh, so there was a building there already. But the cathedral we see today primarily dates from the 12th and the 13th century, primarily. What does that mean? Well, see, that way they can get away with saying it, even though it's probably a lie, but They're not really lying because they're just saying, well, yeah, there wasn't a building there before it burned down. Maybe there was a fire. Maybe that's true. But it didn't all burn down, obviously, because primarily what we see today was built from that point forward. But they could say primarily if maybe the old structure was cleaned and refurbished, and then other things were built, a couple of extra steeples. Now we call it, hey, we found it. So, fire and reconstruction. A major fire in 1194. So before 1194, there was something there that they had to reconstruct. But they don't really want to come right out with it. Much of the existing structure was destroyed in 1194. Much. But the west facade survived. I thought wait a minute, let's go back here. They said the west facade dates from 1134. But it burned down in 1194. Before that. That doesn't even make sense. So the fire in 1194 destroyed the existing structure, but the west facades, the only part that they actually can prove that they built, survived the fire, and the reconstruction began almost immediately. So the part that they said they built wasn't built. It was already there. It survived the fire. And everything else they built after the fire. So what they're literally saying there is that everything was built before the fire, and then after the fire they just did something and claiming that they built it. Okay, further evidence. So far we don't have any historical evidence that they've said. Dendrochronology, tree ring dating. Huh? So even they don't believe it, but they got to go to their scientists who can whoop up some information and some facts for us and some proof that it's there, that's not real proof, but based on pseudoscience. So the tree ring dating on stonework. How do you date stone from tree ring dating? Along with documentary evidence, confirms the general construction timeline. In short, the construction of Chartres Cathedral is well documented. Except that everything you said just says that it wasn't built at that time. But it was a structure that was built before and burned down, and you rebuilt it. And it's supported by both historical records and physical evidence, allowing us to understand its development with a fair degree of certainty. All right, so where's the historical records? History. Okay, guys, get ready for this. The history of the Chartres Cathedral. During your tour of the cathedral, you will be surprised by the extraordinary architectural unity of the building, built and decorated between 1134 and 1260. It's registered as one of the World Heritage Sites and one of the best and complete preserved sites of the Gothic cathedrals and la-di-da. It says evangelized early, while Gaul was still Roman. The city of Chartres had a bishopric by the 4th century. It is supposed that the first edifice, of which we have no trace, dates from this period. So the 4th century is when they originally built this thing. And in 858, the Vikings destroyed the cathedral. So I think this is kind of what happened to a lot of these. We keep on this channel talking about the Vikings of the 10 Germanic tribes that, came in and burned everything down. And what were they wiping out? The Tartarians. We have gobs and gobs of proof of this. So the Vikings destroyed it originally, and then they probably rebuilt it, right? Or polished it up and called it their own. They founded it. When they say they destroyed it, I doubt whether they destroyed. How do you destroy a huge edifice like that? And why would anybody want to do that? You just put your name on it and say, we own it now. So it was nonetheless rebuilt almost immediately. Yeah, immediately, like, whoop, voila. We destroyed it. Now, voila, there we are. We built it. Of this edifice of the 9th century remains the crypt of St. Lubin. In 876, Charles Chave bequeathed the relic of the veil of the Virgin and thereby consecrated Chartres as the great center for pilgrimage. On the September 7th, 1020, a fire again destroys the cathedral. You know, these fires always happen when one group comes in and takes over. Bishop Fulbert built a vast new structure. A new one! Or did they just clean it up and call it their own? Of which the principal crypt in 1020 to 1024 remains today. So it's there today, but they've maybe been adding on to it or something. In September 1134, a large part of the city was devastated by fire again. Dadgummit, which nonetheless spared the cathedral. Wow. And the houses that were destroyed in front of the structure opened up the possibility of building a new facade. You know, like a wall, like the front part, they just kind of decorated it, while significantly lengthening the nave. So again, they're telling you how they're doing it, but they don't want you to know this is actually how they're doing it. You're processing this information, you're hearing them admit it, but you're saying, yeah, but they're not admitting it. They're doing it in so many words, and therefore they must not be admitting it, and I'm just nuts. So the base of the North Tower was begun at that time, around 1145. The construction of the Royal Portal and the South Belfry, the View Clocher, began. The construction of the facade was completed towards 1150 and the South Tower towards 1170. In June of 1194, another fire, coinkydinkley, ravaged the previous building, destroying the framework and leaving only the crypt and part of the western facade intact. After believing the holy relic lost, it was found. Oh, we found it, as priests saved it by hiding it in the crypt during the conflagration. What? Oh, the holy relic. I guess the holy relic is not the building itself. What is the holy relic? Well, I guess they already told us what that was when I wasn't paying attention. But anyway, the priest saved it by hiding it from the crypt during the conflagration, and Bishop Renaud de Mulson, the first cousin of King Philippe Auguste, decided to undertake an exceptional rebuilding project using the new techniques of the time. So Chartres Cathedral was to become one of the first great Gothic cathedrals. Now it's a Gothic one. It's like the Salt Lake Temple. There wasn't any spires on top or, cathedral pinnacles. They built that part, but the rest of the temple was already there, and then they put some facade on it. They put some gargoyles, and they put Morone at the top, made out of brass or something. I don't know. So the work is in itself an absolute record. In 1221, the structural work was completed. It took only a quarter of a century to realize this extraordinary work with its sculpted decorations. The portals and porches of the transept in particular, most of the stained glass windows date back to the same period. The cathedral was consecrated in 1260. In the 14th century, the St. Piat Chapel was added to the nave, and the 15th century, the Vendome Chapel was added. So these buildings were there essentially from biblical days, from what I'm gathering. And they had a lot of wars, and one group would come in and fight and burn things down and scratch off the name of that last guy and put their name on it and run around telling everybody with a reset, and trying to murder everybody so they don't remember. Oh, we're the ones who built all this. When I tell you, I doubt whether any of these Vikings know how to build a shed in their backyard. Okay, guys, here's another one. I think I'm probably just going to leave you with this one, but this is just, we could go through these for days, all these. It's very difficult and painstaking work to find these buildings and pour through pages of AI and historical records and try and figure out if there's any proof. But I asked if Santa Maria del Fiore, which is one of the greatest of these amazing cathedrals built like in the 13th century, supposedly. I asked them if that could be proved, that they built it when they said they did. And they say yes. Historical records and archaeological evidence provide substantial proof that Santa Maria del Fiora, including its famous dome, was built when it's generally believed to have been constructed. It's funny how they always use these words like generally. Growing up as a Jehovah's Witnesses, you would read their Watchtower or their books. And, every year they come out with a new doctrine. And they're like, oh, well, the old things that we believed, let's just pretend we didn't say that. But we're giving you new light. And it's generally believed. And it appears. And, they use these general kind of words so that they don't get caught lying. They don't want to lie. So as long as you say generally, then you can say anything you want. And so the breakdown is the cathedral's construction began in 1296 with the design by Arnolfo di Cambio. The dome, 1436. But here's the problem. Archaeological excavations beneath the cathedral have uncovered the remains of the older Santa Reparata, providing tangible evidence of earlier Christianity in Florence and the site's history. Historical documents, including Giovanni Villani's 14th century chronicle, mention the need to replace the older crumbling cathedral with the grander Santa Maria del Fiora. See, in other words, they changed the name and they refurbished it. But it had been there for centuries before. And they just admitted that it wasn't built or created from that point or constructed from nothing. But the way they put it was built on the top of another building. But just think about what's probably happening here. Most of the building that's this monstrosity that the giants built before the flood or whatever this is that they found, they just went in and cleaned it up, took the name off the old people's, plaque and put their new name on the plaque, and probably had to kill all the people in the city. Maybe there was a war that already happened to kill everybody in that area. And the victors came in and refurbished it, repainted it, redecorated it, and said they built it. That's what happened, friends. I mean, we don't even have to guess anymore. All these people out there talking about Tartaria and what's the scoop and how do we know and proof, and most people think, well, we'll never have proof. They're just going to keep lying until the cows come home. Well, we got proof now. Friends, you can take this to the bank because they admitted it. And if they're going to admit it, then we won. Now, I think AI is wording it this way now when they say generally and things like this. And the way they're answering me, it seems like they know that I'm digging for answers and facts, and they're not allowed to lie. If you get right up, I think, if you went to court and if you were allowed to speak and you could state the law that said you were innocent, they'd have to let you go. I've been told that you can take a Bible with you to court. And if you can find a scripture in the Old Testament that says you're innocent, they have to let you go. Because everything in this world's based on their laws, their contracts. So this is why they use these words like in medicine, doctors write with some kind of code. Because you can't lie. But if they just write it in a language you can't understand, then they get away with murder. They can say the truth. They're telling the truth, but it's in a language you can't understand. Which, again, is probably why the Bible has to be written in many different languages, and our languages keep changing. They're literally altering our language down to the vulgar so that we no longer know how to say important things or know what we're even saying or have meanings to any of these words. But we're just saying words like F-U-C-K or hell or S-H-I-T, stupid vulgar words that we don't even know what they mean. They don't even express how we feel. So they wanted to replace the older crumbling cathedral. Well, do you really think it was crumbling if it was a cathedral? If the roof had crumbled, it would have killed people. It wasn't crumbling. They're using ambiguous terms. All they wanted to do, they didn't replace the older building. They just made it their own. They found it. So Brunelleschi's machine and construction methods were noted by contemporary engineers and artists like Taccola, Leonardo da Vinci, and others, providing further support for the historical accounts. Okay, so all the historical narratives around this are people talking about something that happened at that time, but not a rebuilding of this building from the ground up, but just that they were refurbishing and doing things with it and renaming it. That's all that says. While the dome structure was largely complete by 1430, Brunelleschi's design for the lantern, the small cupola-like structure on top, was not finished until after his death. So, I think that they are telling us the truth, and I think we can just accept the fact that we've got the truth. They've told us the truth right here, as much as we're ever going to know. Because now that when you lie for 1,000 years, the actual facts and truth gets missing somewhere, which I think is why the true priests, and there have always been good, holy, true people who love the Lord, that protected those things with their lives. Before the fire came or people came and destroyed it or whatever, they would take these holy relics and they would put them someplace for safekeeping and never let anybody know where they're at so that nobody could destroy them, because there was constant warfare. This is why you'll find all this talk about the Ark of the Covenant and things like all these holy relics are hidden somewhere. And by the way, guys, I am honing in on where I believe all this treasure may be stored. I think I may have proof, and we're going to tell you about that soon, but I don't know that I want to share the location of where these things are anymore, because I think if I went and found it, I wouldn't tell anybody. But there has to be a reason. If destiny says that these things will finally come up out of the ground, they will be for a reason, to enlighten the world. You can't keep it hidden. Once you've uncovered it, you've got to find a way to make it public to everybody. But anyway, there's a lot of lies and a lot of things are going to be revealed. But, humans can lie, but they're not lying if they don't know the truth. So, the people that are in the world probably don't even really know the truth. And they're probably just doing their best they can with their limited knowledge. They don't have any wisdom. But anyway, I'm going to leave that there, and got a few things to do. Got to get this loaded, and I'll let you guys go. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Lord will bless you now. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.